Or what if I told you that a small island group could change the balance of power in the South Asian region? Yes, we're talking about the Coco Islands, tiny specks in the Indian Ocean that have suddenly become the center of a geopolitical whirlwind. China and Myanmar have inked a 30-year lease agreement for these islands, a move that's causing ripples far beyond their shores. Why, you ask? Because India, a major player in the region, sees this as a strategic encroachment by China. Indeed, the Coco Islands lease agreement is more than just a real estate deal. It's a geopolitical chess move. To understand the weight of this agreement, we must first look back at the series of events that led us here. It's a tale of economic challenges, strategic maneuvering, and geopolitical chess. Myanmar, a nation rich in resources yet plagued with low GDP, faced a significant hurdle. The country's infrastructure was in dire need of improvement, and the financial resources to elevate it were simply not there. Enter China, an economic powerhouse with a keen eye for strategic investments. Amidst Myanmar's struggles, China saw an opportunity. The Coco Islands, a cluster of islands situated right in the heart of the Indian Ocean, presented a chance for China to expand its influence. But these weren't just any islands. They were a vital transportation hub with a high strategic value, which made the deal all the more enticing. China, with its deep pockets, pledged over $1 billion to the Coco Islands. This wasn't a mere act of charity, however. It was a calculated move, an investment that promised significant returns. The billion-dollar infusion didn't just go into the islands. It went into the infrastructure, the economy, and the future of Myanmar. This investment did more than just boost Myanmar's economy. It also served to assuage the nation's fears of potential territorial expansion by its neighbor India. By leasing the Coco Islands to China, Myanmar indirectly secured a powerful ally, a buffer against any potential territorial disputes. The lease agreement was not an overnight decision. It was the culmination of a series of events, of diplomatic negotiations and economic considerations. It was a decision that would have far-reaching implications, not just for Myanmar, but for the entire region. And so, with a stroke of a pen, the Coco Islands were leased to China for 30 years. The ink had barely dried on the lease agreement when its repercussions began to ripple across the region. The aftershocks of this seismic geopolitical shift were felt most acutely in India. As China's influence in the Indian Ocean expanded, a sense of unease and concern spread throughout the corridors of power in New Delhi. India had always viewed the Coco Islands as a strategically significant location. With China now holding a 30-year lease, the archipelago had become a chess piece in a grand game of geopolitical strategy. The perception of China's territorial expansion was more than just a threat. It was a clear and present danger to India's influence in the region. Geopolitical tensions, already simmering between the two nations, began to reach boiling point. The Indian Ocean, long considered India's backyard, was now becoming a stage for China's growing ambition. The Coco Islands, with their prime location and new infrastructure, were a potent symbol of this shift in the balance of power. India's response was swift and decisive. It began to look beyond its borders for allies who might help counterbalance China's growing influence. The United States, with its significant naval presence in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, became a key focus of India's diplomatic overtures. But the game of geopolitics is rarely straightforward. Aligning with the West could lead to significant benefits, but it could also strain India's already tense relationship with China even further. As the dust settled on the lease agreement, it became clear that the Coco Islands were more than just a collection of sand and palm trees. They were a focal point in a complex web of geopolitical strategy and a source of growing tension between two of the world's most populous nations. India, feeling the heat, started seeking cooperation from Western countries to counterbalance China's growing influence. The Coco Islands, once an obscure archipelago in the Indian Ocean, had become a geopolitical hotspot, a symbol of the shifting balance of power in the region. India wasn't alone in its concerns. The Coco Islands lease agreement caught the attention of the global community too. The deal rang alarm bells in capitals worldwide, from Tokyo to Washington, as nations grappled with the implications of China's increasing strategic presence in the Indian Ocean. The United States, a long-standing ally of India and a global superpower, was particularly wary of this development. The Coco Islands, with their proximity to key shipping lanes, could provide China with a strategic vantage point, potentially disrupting the balance of power in the region. The US response was a blend of diplomacy and strategic planning. On the diplomatic front, there were expressions of concern and calls for transparency. Behind the scenes, however, the wheels of strategy were turning. The United States, keen to maintain its influence in the region, began to deepen its ties with India, fostering a partnership that was as much about geopolitics as it was about shared democratic values. This development, in turn, added a new layer of complexity to the already fraught India-China relations. The strengthening US-India alliance raised concerns in Beijing. The geopolitical chessboard was being rearranged, and the stakes were high. Yet, despite the tensions, there were also calls for dialogue and cooperation. Many argued that escalating conflicts would benefit no one, and that a harmonious, rules-based order in the Indian Ocean was in everyone's best interest. The Coco Islands lease agreement had indeed sparked a global reaction, but the final outcome was far from certain. The Coco Islands, once a forgotten speck on the map, had suddenly become a focal point of global geopolitics. So what does this all mean for the future of South Asia and the world? A question that's been echoing around the globe since China signed a 30-year lease agreement with Myanmar for the Coco Islands. The strategic implications of this agreement are far-reaching and complex, and they will undoubtedly shape the geopolitical landscape for decades to come. For starters, the Coco Islands, with their advantageous location in the Indian Ocean, are not just a transportation hub, but a symbolic chess piece in the grand game of global politics. With China pouring over $1 billion into the island's infrastructure development, these once overlooked specks on the map have transformed into a significant point of interest. This is particularly true for India, who views China's growing influence in the region as a potential threat to its territorial integrity. This heightened tension between the two Asian giants could potentially lead to a shift in global alliances. India, in response to China's strategic move, might seek closer cooperation with Western countries such as the United States. This alignment could alter the power dynamics in the region, creating a ripple effect that reaches far beyond South Asia's borders. Moreover, the Coco Islands lease agreement could set a precedent for other nations facing economic challenges and infrastructure limitations. This could lead to a new form of lease diplomacy, where countries lease strategic territories to wealthier nations in return for economic aid and infrastructure development. However, this new form of diplomacy comes with its own set of challenges and risks. It could lead to an increase in geopolitical tensions and territorial disputes, potentially destabilizing the already delicate balance of power in the region. In conclusion, the strategic implications of the Coco Islands lease agreement are profound and far-reaching. They could potentially redraw the geopolitical map of South Asia, influence global alliances, and reshape the future of lease diplomacy. Only time will tell the true impact of the Coco Islands lease agreement. Until then, all eyes are on this little group of islands in the South Asian region. Let's take a step back and look at the big picture. China's 30-year lease agreement with Myanmar for the Coco Islands is a significant move, marking a substantial increase in its strategic presence in the Indian Ocean. These islands, due to their strategic location, serve as a vital transportation hub with immense value. Myanmar's decision to lease the Coco Islands to China was driven by a mix of economic challenges, low GDP, and infrastructure limitations. The fear of India's potential territorial expansion also played a part. China's investments, exceeding $1 billion, have spurred infrastructure development on the islands, promising significant returns. However, this move has not been met without opposition. India perceives China's presence in the Indian Ocean, including the Coco Islands, as a threat to its territorial integrity, leading to heightened geopolitical tensions. In response, India seeks to strengthen cooperation with Western countries like the United States, in an attempt to counterbalance China's growing influence in the region. And the world is watching. The global response to this development is mixed, affecting the relations between these countries and shaping the future strategic landscape of the Indian Ocean region. As we watch the story of the Coco Islands unfold, one thing is certain: geopolitics is a game of strategy, and every move counts.